Hello and welcome to another episode of Celebrating Southbridge. I'm Ron Sanangelo, your town manager, and once again I'm trying to bring out information that's important to you about local government and today about state government. I'm very honored to have a special guest, a man who has served our town for quite some time. Peter Durant is our man as a state representative for the town.
Afternoon.
And Peter, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me.
You know, it's great to have you, and I got to say, I'll say right out of the box that I've seen you more than any other legislator that I've ever seen. You're in town all the time. It seems like you're involved with all kinds of activities. So it's nice to know that I have a legislator who's connected to the community. So I want to thank you for that right out of the box.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, it's, you know, as a member of the House, as you know, there are 160 of us. They say it's the House closest to the people. And so I represent 4 towns, and I try to be in them as much as possible.
Pete, how long have you been a state rep? I know I'm relatively new to town.
Yeah.
So, and some people here may not really know much about you. So how long have you been a state rep? And quite frankly, why do you want to be a state rep? What does a state rep do?
Why?
What do you guys actually do? People want to know. What do you do in Boston?
Well, you know, I guess, so I've been a state rep since 2011. And I came in a special election in 2011. So this is I'm currently in my 3rd term. And running for re-election in November. But why do you want to be a state rep? Well, you know, for me, it all goes back to a period early in 1999. I should say the late 90s, early 2000s, when, like a lot of people, you know, you start to kind of pay attention to what's going on in town. Typically, you go to work, you come home, you don't have a lot of time for government, or you got your own life to run. Right. And so I started paying attention to what was going on in my town of Spencer, and as a lot of people do, you start to get a little disgruntled and you start to complain and do those kinds of things. And my wife said to me one day, she said, well, you know, if you're going to complain, you know, either do something about it or stop complaining, because I'm sick of hearing about you. So I ended up getting on the finance committee, became a selectman, and then became a state rep. It's really just to you know, try to get involved, try to do something, try to better your towns that you represent, and really try to affect some change.
You know, I've served in both like you, and at a local level, everybody kind of knows what you do.
Sure.
You're involved with the police department, the fire department. You're the guy to blame when there's a pothole in the street. If a dog's barking, call you. And you had that when you were a selectman, right?
Absolutely.
So now the state's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, they have some vague ideas of what you might be doing in Boston. Why don't you kind of elaborate as to some of the things that you're involved with as a state rep?
So basically, as a state rep, you know, we'll spend anywhere. People always ask me, how often you in Boston? How often do you have to go into Boston? On average, it's 2 to 3 days a week. Here we are, we're in budget season. We just wrapped up the budget yesterday. You know, you'll spend 4 to 5 days a week in Boston, going over the budget, working on the budget issues. I sit on the Committee for Ways and Means, so we'll be meeting with Chairman Dempsey and working on those kinds of things. And so you spend more time in during this kind of a period. As we drop off into the summer, maybe I'll be in 1 day a week, 2 days a week. Right. So you will drop off a lot of times like selectmen do. And so you're dealing with your legislation, the things that you've filed, pushing some local bills. We have some local bills for the town of Southbridge that we're moving through the process, and so that you can have them, as you know, on your ballot.
Charter changes?
Charter changes that you're going to have on your ballot come June. We're moving those. And so it's really shepherding those kinds of things and pushing the legislation that you're working on. Locally, you're meeting with constituents and helping them cut through red tape. And I think a lot of people don't understand what a rep's job or even a senator's job is when it compares to, or when you think about what it means to them on the street, or every guy on the street. And our job for our constituents is to help them cut through red tape. We get a lot of calls, for example, we get a lot of calls about unemployment insurance. I had to file for unemployment insurance. I haven't seen or heard anything in 6 weeks. You know, can you help me move the process along? So we call up somebody, kick a little butt, try to get things moving so that we can make government work a little easier for them. So that's kind of what we do in a broad overview for constituents and for towns.
So I'm going to start off with simple, okay? Because simple is easy.
Simple's good for me.
Simple is always good. So, you know, a lot of people know, laws.
Sure.
They understand laws. And this is going to be a kind of a simple how a bill becomes a
Oh,
law.
boy.
Right? This is a real simple
That-
concept for us. Not so simple for people that don't follow the process,
Yeah.
right? So a bill's an idea. I want you to prohibit people from talking on their cell phone when they're driving a car. That's a
Sure.
concept of a bill.
Sure.
I want to make that a law because I don't like the fact that there's crazy people out there with cell phones not paying attention to, what's going on.
Right.
Tell me how I get that concept to become a law.
So right? I know as a member of the legislature, a former member of the legislature, you know the old saying, right? There's two things you never want to see being made: sausage and laws.
Yep.
So the concept is relatively easy, but in practice, it's very involved, and it will typically the average bill will take 3 to 4 sessions, and a session's 2 years. Will take 3 to 4 sessions, so 6 to 8 years just to become a law. But the process is, and we can kind of start back from when you take office in January.
Yep.
We have about 3 weeks in January in which you have to file all of your bills.
Yep.
So for freshmen, it's really difficult because you just came in, you haven't even found out where the bathroom is yet, you haven't got an office, and you're expected to file all your bills. But as you become an incumbent, you have bills that you're trying to move that didn't move, so you have kind of a queue of bills. You put them in. This term, they all had to be filed by January 18th. You get them in. They get assigned to a committee. For example, that committee may be public safety.
Right.
And so the public safety committee will take your bill, and they'll hold a public hearing on it.
If they like you.
If
Because they don't have to hold a hearing on it, do they?
Well, if you filed it before January 18th,
Yep.
every bill filed before January 18th has to get a public hearing.
Oh, really? That's nice, yeah.
If after that, you can still file a bill. I filed your bills, for example, the Southbridge bills, after that because you came to me after January 18th. Any bill filed after that is called a late file bill. That doesn't have to get a hearing, and there's a lot more begging that goes on with that
The
one.
chairman,
yeah,
right?
you have to beg the guy, the chairman of Rules Committee. You got to beg the chairman of the. So anyway, but if we file it on time, and that's called a seasonally filed bill, we file it on time. It gets a public hearing. People come in, they tell you why they think it's a good idea, or they tell you why it's a horrible idea, and then the chairman of that committee, along with the Speaker of the House, the leadership, they're going to determine what happens to this bill next. And so many things can happen to it. They can amend it. They could change it. They could just completely gut your bill and put in all new language, whatever they want to do. But by this year, it was, and I may get the date a little bit wrong, but I think it was April 12th. All bills in the second year of your term have to be reported out of committee by April 12th or somewhere there around.
Okay.
And they could be reported favorably, meaning, hey, we think this is a good bill. Send it to the floor of the House to get passed.
So it comes out of the committee process.
Yep.
So my cell phone bill is in the public safety committee.
Yep.
It has a public hearing. People say good things about it.
Right.
Hey, great. The chairman of the public safety committee decides, hey, that's a good concept. We like that. We are going to send it to the floor for a vote. The speaker and the chairman agree. The bill gets sent to the floor, and now I have a chance that it might actually pass in the House.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, so it can pass in the House. So there's technicalities there, right? It has to be read 3 times, but basically we vote on it in the House. At that point, it goes over to the Senate. The Senate has to vote on the exact same bill.
So they can't change it. If my bill says you can't drive cell phones while you're driving your car, the Senate could say, well, that's fine, but if you do, we're going to add this penalty that says, all right, I'm going to increase the fine to $300. That wasn't in the House, and now all of a sudden the bill's confused. Different in the House and the Senate, right?
Right. They have to be identical. Even if you changed one word instead of or, you put and. The bills have to be identical. If they're not, then they go to a conference committee, right? So now you're Senate, I'm House. You say, well, we liked it a little bit differently than you did. We go to a conference committee. We hammer out the differences. And then both branches have to vote on them again, the exact same bill. Then it goes to the governor for signature.
So bills can be difficult to pass, but they
Yes.
can pass in a single session. You can pass it in 1 year. If your bill's really going to be like, it might pass in 1 year. If it's a very complicated bill, you're trying to make big changes, sometimes that could take years or never pass because, for instance, if you want to make it, and I don't know what, in Massachusetts, the death penalty, you're in support of it, and it's currently not, not approved or not allowed in Massachusetts. That could cause tremendous amounts of debate, discussion, amendments. It might take years before you do anything on a death penalty because it's so controversial, so many different ideas, hard to put together groups that will all vote on it the exact same way.
Yeah, and two very quick examples, right? If maybe you remember, maybe you don't, but a couple years back there was the upskirting bill, right? That was the one where it technically wasn't illegal for a sex offender to use his cell phone camera to take a picture of a woman's skirt.
Because nobody perceives what cell phones were.
Exactly.
Or what
There was no definition of it. That once the legislature found that out through a high-profile case, it only took about 3-4 days to actually get that bill to move to do all it had to do. By contrast, we had the 3 strikes bill, which said if you commit 3 felonies, then you have a mandatory life imprisonment.
Right.
That bill took 10 years to pass.
Because a lot of people have different ideas as to what penalties should be, and
yeah. So it can vary widely.
Right. So these bills have to go through committees. For instance,
Correct.
if it's, well, I call it germane, if it's relevant, if a bill like a cell phone bill, well, that goes to public safety because there's some public safety issues. The police have to deal with people that have that. If it's a money bill, it's going to cost money. Sooner or later, it's going to end up in the Ways and Means Committee, which is kind of the budget bill, finance bill. That's the money committee. One of the most important committees in the legislature. You serve on it, right?
Yeah, Ways and Means.
So tell me about Ways and Means. I mean, this is the dollars. If I want to spend a nickel, got to be approved by the Ways and Committee. Right. All bills that have money in it. You get to see a lot of bills.
Ways and Means, the ways in which we take your money and the means by which we spend it.
That's exactly what it is. That's right.
Or you can go vice versa. But yeah, so any bill that has the possibility of affecting a budget has to go through Ways and Means. Mm-hmm. And you may even say, maybe the cell phone probably wouldn't go there, but the cell phone ban, but somebody could come along and say, gee, you know what? If you put that fine on that you talked about, well, then that's going to create revenue. What does that mean to our budget? How much do we expect it to bring in? All of a sudden, Ways and Means has to weigh in on it and take a look at it. So Ways and Means is that committee that does that. We decide or we propose whether or not there's going to be tax increases, tax cuts, spending, things of that nature. Everything goes through the Ways and Means.
So a bill, again, and I keep using this cell phone so people can identify with it, right? So I put in this concept, which is what we call a bill. It's an idea, really. Mm-hmm. The bill has a bunch of different parts of it. It says you can't drive your car while you're using a cell phone. If you do and you get caught, there's going to be a penalty provision, which might send it to a committee called Judiciary. And then, in order to enforce this, I want to, add 15 more state police officers. So now it's got to go, to the Appropriations Committee to budget for the police officers. So an idea, a bill as it goes through the process, could go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 committees and have to be approved by each of those committees before it ever gets to the floor for a vote, right?
Yeah, and remember that there's a very limited window of opportunity here. We have 2-year sessions, but even within those 2-year sessions, once you file your bills in January, 5,000 bills get filed. And so the Rules Committee has to go through all of them. They have to assign them, so that can take a month or two. Then the committees, that's another month or two. Some committees may not have that hearing until the next year. So there's a limited window of opportunity in which you got to get everything done.
So if I, as a citizen, have an idea and I want a new law passed, you know what? My child died as a result of something bad happened in the world, and I think if we change the law, other children wouldn't die.
Sure.
And I want to pass that bill and print it into law. I talk to you?
Yeah. In fact, I've always said that I get a lot of good ideas from citizens. Sometimes you get some not so good ideas. But I'll give you one example. A woman came to me and she said, my sister had passed away. She felt at the hands of an abusive, what she thought was an abusive husband. She wanted to get the death certificate. By law, the coroner's office was not permitted to give the sister the death certificate. You'd only give it to the defined next of kin, which was her husband. And her husband said, too bad, not giving it to you. So she didn't think that was right, especially where you had, and the husband just didn't want to be cooperative. So we filed a bill that said that the medical examiner had to give that death certificate to the next of kin, or what was called, and of course there's legal terms for everything, it was called the first degree of sanguinity or something weird like that. But it meant the woman's parents or siblings were also entitled to this. Right. So she came to me with that. We were actually able to get that passed. It took 2 terms, but we were able to get it passed, and so she was able to at least provide a little bit of closure.
It's got to feel good too when you actually pass a bill that affects somebody's life.
Yeah.
Or somebody came to you with an idea and you can make it a law.
Yeah.
Which might save somebody else's life or give somebody some comfort. It's a great feeling to pass it, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's I always make the joke, and it's just I say it tongue in cheek, but I always say passing legislation is a lot like gambling, right? In which you go out, you go to Foxwoods, you gamble, and you lose all the time. But when you win, you want to gamble a little bit more.
Yeah.
So legislation is like that. It's hard to get it through, but once you get a victory, it says, you say, wow, I feel good. We were able to do something. I want to go and do some more.
So the Ways and Means Committee we talked about is a powerful committee because it deals with all the money for the state, right? So usually serving on a committee gives you a little extra clout sometimes because you get to have a say on an important document. That's the state budget, right?
Theoretically.
So it's at least you're in theory, and the more I get the whole majority, minority, and the powers of who's running the place, right?
Yeah.
But at least you have a little more input because as the budget's being put together, you're in play. You can discuss it, you can make amendments, you can do a lot of things. Other legislators that are not on Ways and Means have to wait till the budget's on the floor.
Right.
It's already completed. Much harder to change a completed document
Yeah.
than changing a document when it's just being built, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So how does that work for you? I mean, and again, I know you're in a minority party, so the Democrats control the Ways and Means Committee, but you at least can make amendments and have input, and sometimes you can work in subcommittees to even do more.
Yeah,
So
it's
there's
not
some
so
process.
much. It's not so much the amendment process, and we talked about that. It's this year's budget, right? And we can go into the whole budget process, but the governor put forward his budget, which is called this year. It's called H2, House 2, even though it's put in by the governor, and he put in $39.5 billion. The House then takes the budget. Now, we also have a saying that the governor proposes and the legislature disposes. So the governor takes their shot at it. We came in a little bit under the governor's budget this year.
So the governor proposed 39 billion,
Yep.
and you reduced the governor's budget.
Right, by a few hundred
Well, that's
million.
funny. A Republican offered a high budget, Democrats cut it. That's kind of
But
unique. And
There are some politics at play.
There you go.
But but the argument would say it wasn't by much. I mean, when you're talking
Minor.
a few $1 million, it's a lot of money, but in $1 billion
Still
budget.
gives you the opportunity to say that if you're Democrats, I cut the governor's budget. He's
Exactly.
freewheeling spender, those Republicans. Yeah, I know the politics, but I get it. Yeah.
But and then a lot of the prevailing thought is, well, we're going to bring it up with earmarks and amendments and things of that nature. I will say that for the past 2 years, since the Republican governor's been there, and I'm not saying it's because of the Republican governor, but the leadership, the Democratic leadership, has been very, very hard on us with earmarks. And earmarks can always be a dirty word.
Well, explain what an earmark is. Me and you know what earmarks are, but the general public doesn't quite understand earmark. What's an earmark?
So an earmark is a specific appropriation, a specific amount of money for a specific project. For example, we put in a request, a budget amendment for a park here in Southbridge. We put in money for the Quinnebog Rail Trail. We put in money for a fire station study.
Tell me some of those earmarks passed, but I understand.
Yeah, and sometimes, and to be honest, I mean, look, we can be perfectly honest.
Right.
You put in a lot so that maybe you can get a couple.
Right.
It's about negotiating.
Yeah.
They say, well, we don't want to give you this one, but how about if you give me that one? And you always put in more than you ask. It's just
a
the way
part
it
of the
works.
process,
It's
right?
negotiating.
Yeah.
And so, but an earmark is a specific amount of money for a project. Now, on the federal level, we always hear about the bridge to nowhere. We're spending money on these ridiculous projects. There are certainly ridiculous projects, but I don't consider when you need this town of Southbridge may decide to look at a fire station, renovate or repair or move, whatever it may be. Well, we want some money to do that. So that's what an earmark is. This term, they've been very, very hard on us on earmarks.
On us being House members or being Republicans?
The House members.
All House members.
There are a lot of
Republican.
very upset Democrats as well.
Okay.
So what we find on the Ways and Means Committee works out better is not so much getting earmarks, but trying to push different priorities in the budget.
Through agencies, you mean?
Well, we can talk about agencies, but I mean during the budget process of Ways and Means of sitting down with the chairman and look, I'll be honest, even though I'm a member of Ways and Means, I don't sit down with Brian Dempsey and say, hey, let's raise this line item, and he says, yeah, that's a great idea. You got to get a bunch of members to say, let's raise this line.
Hopefully you can do it on a bipartisan basis. You get
Exactly.
something that benefits your town, but also benefits a Democrat's town, and you kind of put together a package and say, hey, this benefits all of us, help us all, you know?
And schools are a really good choice for that,
Right.
Because the governor proposed $25 per student increase. The House budget comes out. We did a lot of lobbying because most legislators are if they're in tune with their communities, schools are a big issue. So we're able to lobby and talk to the chairman and get it up to $55 per student. Special ed costs, things of that nature. Regional school transportation, which doesn't
let's talk
necessarily.
about that because that's really important to the town of Southbridge and everybody else, right? So you're talking Chapter 70 funding is what we're talking about, right? So the governor proposed, I thought, frankly, pretty good amounts of money for Chapter 70 funding, right? And which I was very impressed at because it seems to me that the governor has a big interest in helping municipalities. He's really spent a great deal of time out of the first couple of years trying to, how can I help individual towns?
Right.
So he presented, I think it was like a 3 or 3.5% increase based upon what the revenue states were going to be. Are you saying that the House actually increased that to the town?
Let me pull out. There's a lot of numbers.
I know, but I don't. You know what? I'd rather not even get too much specific.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is, we might get a little bit more state money in Chapter 70 than we expected.
Yes.
Now the Senate hasn't passed the bill yet, but
correct.
At least the House says they'd like to give us some more money.
Yeah. The governor proposed $25 increase per student. That's the easiest way to think about it.
But that's double the increase. That doubles the numbers.
And then
that's a lot of money.
And we increased it to $55 per student. So this governor, and especially for Central Mass legislators, I'll say, local aid's a big issue for us. So we're always talking to the chairman of Ways and Means about pushing more local aid down, whether it's unrestricted local aid, the stuff we give to the cities and towns just to spend how they feel, or Chapter 70 money. That's our issue. So we're trying to push that down.
So let me say something because I want to be really clear with citizens.
Sure.
Right? That sounds really good, but the Senate hasn't passed it yet.
Well,
and I want to know, before I start banking on that money and start counting that money, I want to know that the Senate agrees and the budget's passed and the town will actually get that money.
Well, you're in a good position. You're in a good position because what happens is as we move through this process, the budget process, our financial outlook becomes more and more clear.
The state's financial.
The state's financial outlook.
So you're seeing more revenues than the state might have expected.
Right. So what happens? The governor he starts doing his budget, putting his budget together in January, and so he's only got half year's worth of revenue because our fiscal year is not January to December. So he starts putting together the information with the numbers he knows.
Has to be conservative in nature because he doesn't know the real numbers yet.
He doesn't want to go out with a budget that later on he has to cut.
Big deficit,
Yeah. So now the House comes out and we start doing ours after the governor. But we've had a couple more months of seeing how that revenue's coming in. If it's coming in good, okay, we can add things to it. We're comfortable adding to it. Finally, Senate, they have the last bite at the apple, and they've had another month or two of revenue coming in. So as long as revenue's doing well, and it is doing fairly well for the state, Senate typically, and that's a caveat, typically, will give you a little bit better outlook and a little bit better numbers in their budget. Now,
Then the House?
Then the House.
So that means it's conference committee.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because remember, there's also senators. We put in 1,300 amendments to the budget.
Yeah.
The Senate is going to put in 1,000 amendments. So there's no way those documents are coming out the same.
Let's be clear, because that's a lot of amendments. But not all those amendments get called or read or changed. Those are proposed changes. But the Speaker of the House could say, you know what, and the Chairman of the committee could say, we were only doing 3 amendments.
Oh, yeah.
Out of thousands. It's,
and remember, that's part of the horse trading. So if I want this particular amendment to pass, I'm going to put in a few others so that when they come to me, and I can tell you how it works. So typically what happens is you put in a dozen amendments, 10 amendments, and I really want these 1 or 2. And so what happens is a member of a member of the Democratic leadership comes up to you and they say, "Look, I got these amendments here. What are we doing with these?" I say, "Well, they're pretty good amendments, so we'd like to see them passed." Now, any member of the House, Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter who you are, has the right to argue his amendment on the floor.
If it gets called.
No. I can call that amendment. I can pull the amendment, and I can argue it.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I apologize. You're right. You're right.
And so I can sit there and I can say, these are really good amendments. And he'll say, yeah, well, we don't really want to deal with this one or this one. You're never going to get that one.
So don't call it, because if you do, we're going to kill it.
We're going to just squash you like a bug anyway.
Right. And they have the numbers to do it.
Of course, and you know that. But you know what? And so maybe I'll put in there, something to reduce taxes, and I'll say, really, you want to vote no on reducing taxes? That's not good for your district. It's that process.
Part of it's politics.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you get there, and maybe they say, I'll tell you what, give you this, you get rid of these ones, and we'll. Okay, so that's part of the process. So you're right, 1,300 amendments, they're not going to work that way.
No.
But it's part of that sausage making process.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting you say that. So you said something to me earlier, and I guess I've been doing this too long because I get it. I actually understand it, right? So the governor put out a budget, and the House came back and reduced the budget in terms of spending, right?
Yep.
But then your next breath was, hey, our revenue numbers look better than when the governor had it. So in theory, if you have the governor's budget, you can add more money to the budget and make a bigger budget. So you guys did something interesting. The House took more money and they put it into education. They still spent less than what the governor said, so that means they made some cuts to something the governor wanted, right?
Yeah.
So the priorities changed from what the governor's priorities
yeah.
were to what the House's priorities, and they didn't necessarily use all the revenue
Right.
that they had, just extra revenue out there, but they said, you know what? We're going to spend basically what the governor did, maybe a little less, but we don't like his priorities.
Yeah.
He was really good with education. We're going to be awesome with education, right? So that's what.
That's exactly right.
So something got kicked out of the governor's budget to give you all that money to put to education.
Yeah.
Right?
Some of the human services took more of a cut in certain areas. But you're absolutely right. It's more of an adjustment of priorities. And one thing that people have to remember too, we're spending basically $40 billion. More than half of that is taken up on healthcare.
Yeah,
That you can't change. So I can't even touch about $25 billion.
That's employee health care for union members, employees.
Yeah.
Then there may be health care for citizens that are old and have no money. I mean,
Medicare,
there's all kinds of health care issues that are funded through the state budget.
Yeah.
Right?
And so, and we hear that a lot on the federal side as well, is entitlements and things of that nature. Then there's debt service, as you know. So
got to pay your bills. Yeah,
exactly.
Old loans.
There's union contracts.
Think of it as mortgages, right?
That's right.
People's mortgages is a big loan the state had for building highways or roads or hospitals, whatever they built. They didn't have all the money in it. They borrowed it, and the debt service is paying back those bills. Right?
Yeah, and so when you take in that $40 billion, you all automatically say, okay, I don't have that money. I got to pay my mortgage. I got to pay this. I got union contracts I got to pay. So really, the amount of money that is discretionary is a very, very small portion, and that's what we're working with. And so that's kind of where we're working with that.
So the good thing is, if the Senate passes the House version or a little better, whatever, the answer is that potentially that Southbridge might receive more in its Chapter 70 funds, which gives us a little bit more money to help us with our education costs, which is a good thing.
Right, and that's also what I was talking about, too, was even though we have all these things, a lot of times the governor would look to, in his two budgets, he looked to reduce the structural deficit, meaning money that we took out of the rainy day fund to help pay for the expenses, like we may do here in town for stabilization or whatever. So he looked to kind of cut that back. And so we could have spent a lot more. Well, a lot more is a relative term. We could have spent more than the governor spent, but it's just an adjustment of those priorities and what's coming in. So the Senate will have its budget.
The good thing about that is if the revenues are coming in really high, you guys end up spending less than the governor's proposal. It might mean a good surplus for the following year that you can use to pay off debt service or do other positive things.
Well, and so, and that's exactly right. So during the course of the year, we'll also do what's called supplemental budgets. In towns, they may be called, like you're doing a fall town meeting to kind of clean up the books. But a supplemental budget, revenue's been coming in really strong. We kind of underfunded. We actually underfund the sheriff's departments a lot. It seems to be a chronic thing that we do. And I'm not entirely sure why. But we'll say, we took in, we're doing pretty good with revenue right now. Let's go and allocate more money out to the sheriff's departments.
Well, one of the things that are grossly underfunded usually, I don't know about the state, is pension plans for employees.
Oh, sure.
The state's never, state, local, everybody for years, never fully funded the pensions for their employees. So, whenever you get a little extra money, sometimes you allocate a little bit more money to pay off the pensions and at least make them more fully funded, I guess is the way to say it, right?
Yeah, and we want to also, we have unfunded pension liabilities, as all of our towns do. We're trying to get our stabilization, our rainy day fund back up. We're at about $1.5 billion, but the credit rate, and that's the thing too. So the credit rating agencies, they look at this kind of stuff.
Yep.
So we're trying to get that stabilization fund back up to like $2.5 billion, because then we can borrow money at a cheaper rate.
Right. So that ties to the local level in the same way, right? So we had a little extra money in free cash, which is a surplus from last year. We put it into stabilization, which is our savings account. And in places like Standard & Poor's, who look at the town's financial performance, they adjust our bond rating depending upon how financially stable our town is, how much we have in sort of our rainy day fund, stabilization fund, and they give us a better bond rating. And a better bond rating means if we go out and borrow money, we can get a lower interest rate that saves people money.
That's
it's the
right.
same thing on a state level.
Yeah, it's just borrowing money at a better rate, and it saves taxpayer money.
So let's talk about some of your other committees, because Ways and Means is cool, and it's probably the strongest committee around. But tell me the other committees you serve on, because you're not only on one.
Right. Well, it's I will say that it's actually not even my favorite committee.
No, well, it's dry. It's like accounting, you know.
It is. But my favorite. So the only other committee I sit on at this time is the Post Audit and Oversight Committee. House Post Audit and Oversight, and basically that is my absolute favorite committee. That committee is the one where we investigate agencies, investigate things that are going on. This term hasn't been a really active term. We've done some work on utility rates, rate structures, and things of that nature, and kind of dry in and of itself. Last term was very interesting. We've done work with, we actually were able to investigate things that, the Boston Marathon bombings. We investigated the Sarnev family. We investigate some things that are going on at the Department of Children and Families. So we get to kind of dig into real issues, and that to me is just very interesting.
So I mean, it sounded like it'd be fun to me too.
Yeah.
So the legislature develops some kind of program, and they think it's going to be great. It's going to save people money, and the state's going to get all this great performance. We're going to improve the care of people in nursing homes. And we developed this great program. The Audit and Oversight Committee comes back 3 years later, looks at that program and says, did this thing really do what we wanted it to do? And is there any fraud in it? It's not working. So you investigate something that's already created to find out if it's doing what you wanted it to do.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. We don't take the place of the auditor in Massachusetts. We have an auditor, and they'll do a lot of work like that. But we have subpoena power, and we're able to go in and pull these agencies in, look at how they're performing. And
so all you folks thought about, you can remember on the federal level, the whole investigation into the IRS and how they were doing things. And it was somebody investigated the IRS, and they find out there's these flaws. And then you get these flaws, and you try to take action to fix those flaws.
Right.
So it's an investigative committee that evaluates programs and things that government's doing to make sure they're good, and if they're not working out the way they do it, they recommend changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have the ability to write legislation to address those changes and things of that nature. So it's a really, it's a fun committee to be on, because you get to dive into some of the inner workings of some of these things going on.
So tell me, we have a Republican governor, and of course our Senate and House is made up of Democrats. They have control. How does that work out? I mean, is the relationship good, like you said? And I've known this from my own history. The governor proposes a budget, and as you said, it gets disposed of.
Yeah.
Now, governors, in spite of that, they get a lot of what they want. I mean, there's a lot of changes to their budget. They don't get everything they want, but they get a lot of what they want, because they have the information, they have the agency heads who put together the budget.
Right.
So governors do very well, even though they don't get everything. What's the relationship between this Republican governor and the Democratic legislature? How is that working out?
Well, I'll tell you, it's very clear to see the difference between this governor, Governor Baker, and our previous governor, Governor Patrick. And it's not what a lot of people would think. It's not quite as partisan as you would think. Charlie Baker gets along better with the Speaker of the House, Bob DeLeo, and the Senate President, Stan Rosenberg, than Deval Patrick ever did.
Well, he has to, because if he doesn't, none of his priorities are going to get passed.
Well,
I mean, let's be honest. A Republican governor to a Democratic legislature has to deal. I mean, you have to bring together and work in a bipartisan way, because if not, the legislature has a lot of power, and they could stop the governor from doing almost anything.
Oh, sure.
So it's a choice where either they work along together or nothing gets done, right?
Yeah, that is.
Or the governor vetoes the stuff they do. Although I think they got a supermajority here. So
oh yeah. You're going to override anything you want to. But it's interesting because, and I hear this from a lot of my Democratic colleagues, was by the time the previous governor left office, there were a lot of unhappy Democrats. he really tended to look down his nose at the legislature as more of an impediment to what he wanted to do than as a partner. Charlie Baker came in, and you're right, a lot of it he understood, he knew he had to do this.
Yeah.
But as a financial manager, he came in with solutions. He took the bull by the horn and said, this is what we're going to do. I mean, his first thing was to take over the MBTA during the blizzard of 2015 and really kind of take over control of that and do a good job at it. So he has a better relationship with both the Speaker of the House and the Senate President than the previous governor did. What's really interesting, though, is that he has better relationships with each of those individuals than they do with each other. They
have their own power struggles inside, right? I mean, let's face it, Republicans and Democrats, they fight with each other. Sometimes it's harder to get along among their own group than it is outside.
Yeah, the battle is much more between Senate and House than it ever is between Republican and Democrat.
Right.
And as far as, from our standpoint, you're right. So in the House of Representatives, there are 160 members. 33 of us now, because we had a special election. We had 34, one left, and it was replaced by a Democrat. But so there's 33 members. So we don't have a lot.
Right.
And even you talk about a supermajority, we would need 54 just to sustain a veto. But there's certainly partisan issues. Everybody has them. But for the most part. The issues aren't as partisan as you would think, and you're aware of that.
Well, you know what? When I was in the legislature, it's funny because 95% of stuff everybody agrees on from both sides of the aisle, Republican, Democrat. But those 5% are issues that it's like extreme. No way, we hate each other. It's very difficult, and that's the people read about the 5%. There's no good story about 95%. Everybody agreed.
The 95% is not sexy.
The newspapers write about what people disagreed on, what the fight is about, not the 95% of stuff that just is sort of an automatic. You know?
And you hear that. We passed this $40 billion budget with a unanimous vote because we all kind of worked together. We all had our say. We got some of the things we wanted. And is it a perfect document? No, it never is.
But this one bill didn't pass because and they fought like crazy. And they were up till 2 o'clock, and it was 50 amendments, and it didn't go through. And
exactly.
It's funny. I mean, it really is strange that the story tends to be the negative. Let's be honest.
Sure.
It's not. It's never that we passed this great bill that helped everybody.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
It's easier to watch you fight, and we like to watch that because it's entertaining.
It's entertaining.
And it has news value.
That's right. That's right. That's just the way it works.
It is, and it's sad that that's the way it works. But so the public gets this perception that nothing ever gets accomplished because of that 5% fight.
And that's actually is a kind of a student of government. I mean, this is my gig. I love this stuff, and you hear a lot of people who are disgruntled. Nothing ever gets done, but a lot of people don't remember that your government was set up by its founding fathers to be very slow. It's not supposed to react. It's not supposed to have knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah, no emotional reaction. It's supposed to be based on good logic and facts. And, taking time to research and study what you do. Right?
It's not supposed to be easy to get something to pass because it's, as Calvin Coolidge said, it's far better to squash a good bill than to pass a bad one.
Yeah. So it's actually kind of fascinating because thousands of bills get introduced every year, and you're lucky if a couple of hundred get passed.
Absolutely.
And you might be 20,000 bills and get 500 that are passed. Right? I mean, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing, I think.
Exactly.
A lot of screening to take out all the garbage because, frankly, most of it is just that garbage.
You see a lot of things going in there, and you look at them and you think, wow, who could come up with this idea?
Yeah. It is fascinating, and frankly, sometimes it's extremes. People that are to the far right, to the far left. That most of the people in the middle go, that's too far. Let's moderate it and make it this instead. It's as you say. I guess you hear a lot. It's the art of the deal. It's a compromise. People have to come together and find middle ground because you can't pass something unless there's a middle ground.
Right.
It really is.
Right, and every one of those 60 members in the House. And the 40 members in the Senate, everybody's got their own priorities. They've got their own district to worry about. Everybody says, well, you just run for re-election. You do things so that you get re-elected. But I would argue that you're doing them for your district. Yeah. If you're getting re-elected, it's because you're doing the things that your district wants you to do.
So you've been there about 6 years? Is that what it is? A little over 6 years?
No, just under 6 years.
Just under 6 years. So in 6 years, do you have a bill that you're particularly proud of that you either sponsored or co-sponsored or worked hard and
I am.
you might have thought it wouldn't get passed and it happened and you were like, yeah, you know, tell me what that bill is.
Yeah, the story is that the packaging of medical marijuana in Massachusetts cannot look like a commercially available candy.
The commercially available what?
Candy.
Candy,
So,
okay.
in other words, one of the things that we saw on the West Coast when medical marijuana started getting coming out, getting pushed, it's more about edibles than smoking marijuana. It's about eating, about the edibles.
Yeah.
And so they were packaging them to look like one of my favorite is the Kit Kat. Well, you have a red package with the Kit Kat, except it would say Keef Kat, but it would look exactly the same. And so I put an amendment to I think it was a 2013 budget to ban this practice in Massachusetts. And the funny story is that this was one bill, and I actually had some freshmen talk to me about it the other day, and they said, I heard about what you did there. But it was one of those bills where, as I said earlier, Democratic leadership comes up and they're like, what is this? And I told them, and I showed them some pictures, and they said, we're not going to do this. And I said, oh, I'd like to argue it on the floor. Like, really, you want to argue this? I said, yeah, I'll argue this. So I get up on the floor of the House, and I'm arguing it, and I'm trying to make the story short, but it was because it was a long process. But at the end of the day, it was something where the Democratic leadership, who controls, as we just said, 20 of those members, and did not want this, and the Democratic members in the House supported me on
Started
it.
getting up and speaking to the bill.
Exactly.
Hey, this is pretty good. I like this idea.
Well, it all turned. Again, it's a long story, but it all turned. What typically happens is you go up, you give your spiel. Here's what I want. Here's why I'm looking for it. Here's why it's important. And I can see people in the chamber, and I can see them nodding, and I'm thinking, I think I got something here. And then what happens is a member of the Democratic leadership comes up, and they tell everybody why they shouldn't vote for it. So I got up again, and I gave my spiel again, and more people, and we had people coming into the chamber. I gave my spiel, and then as I sit down, another member's coming up, and I'm thinking, okay, here's the next one. And that as they were walking up, he stuck his hand out, and he said, this is a good amendment, Pete. He says, I'm going to support it. And I said, no kidding.
Yeah, surprise, surprise.
Yeah,
Hey,
I said, no kidding. And he gets up there and he says, this is important. This stuff is a problem. We're going to curb that, and we're going to pass this bill. He says, I fully support this amendment. That was a member of the leadership team. That person was now the mayor of Boston, Marty Walsh.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. And so he gets up there, and the speaker, who's not the speaker, Bob DeLeo isn't presiding. It's one of his lieutenants. He doesn't know what to do. So he gavels us out. He said, we're going to take a recess.
We got to figure this out. This ain't going the way I wanted it to go. Time out.
And it was actually something where we were able to change.
They went back, talked to his guys, and they said, you know what, we want this one. Do
Well,
it.
what happened is we had to go into DeLeo's office, Bob DeLeo's office. A heated discussion took place, and DeLeo said, okay, I'm convinced. Let's do this.
Yep.
And so that was something where you don't.
Isn't it great when you go home and you go, hey, this wasn't supposed to happen. I made it happen.
I actually made it happen, and it felt good.
And you know that, later on you're going to see whenever this happens, it comes out, it's not going to be that way. And it's going to be safer for children. And you can say, hey, I did that.
Exactly.
That's the great thing about government, frankly, is you can get some real satisfaction about doing something good that helps people.
Exactly.
And you can see it. You can't get that in the private sector. It's hard. It comes in the public sector. But if you're working on let's say a private sector, you're doing computers. Okay, I built a computer system, rah, who cares? But when you can say, oh my God, I kept this packaging to keep children from using marijuana. You say, I kept kids from danger in life. That's kind of a cool deal.
It really is. And I work a lot with some freshmen who are my friends, and I'll say that to them. I'll say, what you're doing, because it's easy to get disgruntled when you have a bill that doesn't seem to be going anywhere and nobody cares and it gets squashed. And so, but what you're doing, I says, is you have the ability to affect millions of people's lives with a good piece of legislation. And it's not going to be easy to get it through there, but once you do, you'll feel like you're on top of the world.
I always found that the best way to get things done is to get co-sponsors of bills.
Oh, yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So I'm a Republican at the time back there, and I'm in the minority, and I want something done. I would go talk to some of my friends in the Democratic Party and say, hey, listen, this is a great idea. What do you think? Will you co-sponsor it? Sure, yeah, I'll co-sponsor it. Now the Democrats have to say no to other Democrats, and
Yeah.
it makes it harder.
Yeah.
And you know what? You share the credit, and frankly, if you're willing to share credit in the
Yeah.
legislature and share it among people of their party and come out together, you have a much better chance of passing your things.
Absolutely. It's not nearly as acrimonious as the media would make it, as it seems like in Washington. Maybe Washington's a little different, but it's not nearly that way. And you're absolutely right. There are things that I will never agree with my Democratic colleagues on. But 95% of the time, you're like, okay, how about if I do this and you do that? Oh, yeah, okay, this is all good.
Yeah, it really is. You have to have the willingness to work together.
Yeah.
And you can't be an extremist. You can't be on one far right or the left.
That's right.
Because if you're far right or far left, it's very difficult. If you're so pure, you can't make an agreement. You're never getting anything done.
Yeah. And it's so funny because there are people on both sides of the aisle who you probably had it in the Connecticut legislature.
Yeah.
They head up to the microphone, and everybody's going,
Yeah, I don't want to hear this. I know where it's going. Yeah. You know, it's what made funny is because you speak of that. We had a labor committee.
Yeah.
And labor committee was all about the unions. You know,
Yep.
unions controlled the labor committee
Sure.
because all the people who were appointed to the labor committee were the most pro-union Democrats you'd
Yep.
ever want to see. Well, if it was a bill that came out of the labor committee, everybody in the house would go, "Oh, here we go," because it was always to the extreme, and it was very difficult for the labor committee chair to get those bills called,
Right.
Because they didn't have general support legislature, and they
Yeah.
had a small group of people who loved them to death, but couldn't go out beyond that. But you're right, it was when those bills got called, it was like painful because it was like, oh, this is going to be a long battle over everything, and probably nothing will ever happen, you know.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, the legislative process is interesting, and you do get to make a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's another behind the scenes, and frankly, the work that I got done the best sometimes had nothing to do with my work of passing laws.
Mm-hmm.
But as you said, helping somebody through the bureaucracy,
Sure.
right? So my favorite story is that I had a woman who wanted to have a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And she couldn't have a baby unless she had an operation. I can't remember the name of the operation.
Okay.
But her insurance company wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
They just wouldn't do it. So I called the insurance commissioner's office. I worked with them. They worked with the company. The next thing I know, the insurance company says, "All right, we're going to let her do the operation. It's going to be covered under medical coverage."
Yeah.
And then she had a baby. I
Yeah.
was like, it was so cool.
There's somebody in the world
This
because
woman
of
had
you.
a baby because I got this.
Exactly.
And so you do that all the time.
Yeah.
Citizen has a problem. You know what? I can't get help through the Department of Motor Vehicles. I can't get help through the Department of Economic Development. Can you help me, Pete? And you have what people don't know. If you are like us, there's a guy appointed from every state agency that's a legislative liaison
Yep.
who breaks through all the bureaucratic nightmare and helps you because he has power at the top. And if he wants something for legislature, it gets done faster, right? So you have that.
Yeah, some are better, some are worse. But yeah, in a sense, every department has a legislative liaison. I will say one of the things, and you mentioned it earlier, is with a Republican governor now, you have more friendly people at the top. That helps out as well.
Yep.
But yes, they have a legislative liaison that their whole job is to schmooze you and try to help you in doing whatever you need. Now, probably the most difficult part, as you probably know, is when you can't actually do something.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will say, well, why don't you just do this? Or it's like, it's not what I do.
Kind of like people come to me and say, you know what, I don't want to I can't afford to pay property taxes on this property. Can you help me out? Well, no, I can't help you out. You know, there's no way to help you out. I mean, I feel bad,
Yeah.
but you know, I'm suffering. I'm not. Yeah, that's true, but I can't help you because I can't help anybody.
My
It's
favorite
out
call-
of my control, but I feel bad for you.
I know.
But I can't do nothing.
My favorite call was the gentleman called me up and he said, I'm having problems with paying my taxes, and I need you to help me and do something about this. So I said, oh, okay. So we called up our legislative liaison over at DOR. Said, this is the guy. He's having some problems. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We can work with an extension. We'll help him get out of that. So he doesn't have to pay it right up front, and we'll work with him.
Like payments or some
Exactly.
structure, right?
So I called him back and I said, hey, Joe, I was able to get you an extension. We're able to help you out. He said, oh, no, I don't want to pay
taxes.
him.
Yeah.
I said, oh, yeah, I can't help you with that.
I mean, and you get it. I mean, it's people have different needs and different desires.
Oh, sure.
But I mean, like I say, I say to my employees all the time, I want you to be really customer service friendly. I want you to be nice. But that doesn't mean I'm going to say yes to everybody
Yeah.
because some answers are no. I just can't help you with that.
Right.
So people walk up upset. It's not because my staff wasn't friendly or kind. It's just that the answer is no.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't like that answer no because they come in wanting a yes answer. And some things we can't do. Like, we can't just say you don't have to pay your taxes.
Right.
We can't, if everybody else pays a late fee, we can't say, well, everybody else has to pay a late fee, but you don't. You know, it doesn't work like that, you
No.
know?
And that is, and we'll have people, and you're right, they'll walk away and they'll say, we don't get to, and I'm thinking of some examples of, people say, well, I need this done, and you do this. I say, that's not our job. I don't have the authority to do it. I don't have the legal authority to do that. There are laws in place that affect this.
Right. So tell me, we've talked about the budget process, which is always the big one. But what are the hot bills this year? Like, I remember last year sometime there was the bill about the gas tax. And should we do the gas tax? And frankly, a lot more complicated than people think. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't take the gas tax, you don't put in the revenue, your roads don't get better. So yeah, it's great not to raise the gas tax. That's really, really great. But you're going to drive on crappier roads. That's just the way it is, because the money from the gas tax pays for the roads. So, what's better? I don't know. You pay more in gas taxes, you fix more roads. You pay less in gas taxes, you drive on crappier roads. So
Right.
it is what it is. So there's
Well,
correlation between these things.
Even with that, I mean, I think it was difficult. It's difficult. As a Republican, we would rather see you be more efficient than raise taxes, of course.
Right.
But we all know that sometimes you have to raise taxes. But you look at the gas tax. I didn't think it helped that gas at the time was $4 a gallon.
Yeah.
If you tried, gas fell through the floor. I bought gas here 6 months ago at Cumberland Farms here for $1.48.
Easier to add a little bit to the gas.
Exactly, that's the point, right?
Yeah.
So it might have been easier then, but yeah. So some of the hot button issues. I mean, we really worked hard on some opioid legislation to try to have some effect on this opioid crisis that we're facing. So the governor put forward a bill, the House put forward a version, and we really kind of worked that through. That was a big issue for us.
It's a big issue here too. So I'm in the process right now of creating a commission. I want sort of a town manager's commission on opioid use and reducing the drug use in our community, right? So I've talked to Kristen O'Clair, is one of our town councils. She's agreed to serve. I'm meeting with, discussing with Ed Moore. He's going to get somebody from Harrington Hospital to serve on it. I've asked the police chief and the deputy police to take leadership on it. I'm going to look for other groups that are involved in that issue to form this commission. And thank God the governor put out a package that talks about the 10 things that municipalities can do right away to kind of help with this problem. But we need to do more on educating people to stay off drugs. Before it gets to be a problem, the best thing you can do is stay off the things in the first place. So I think it's great that the governor's made this initiative. It's a huge problem everywhere. And we're going to join into what the governor's done and try to make it more of a local issue. Because every time, you could save lives here. This is one of those things where the more you educate people to the dangers, the more lives you save, right?
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. One of the most important parts of that legislation was a fairly simple part. Studies show that, and I'll get the number wrong, but it's in the high, maybe 80, 90% of those who are addicted to opioids start with prescription drugs. And what's happening is you go in for day surgery or your wisdom teeth, you get your wisdom teeth taken out, and the doctor writes you a 30 pills worth of whatever.
Yeah, Percocet,
codeine, whatever it may be.
Oxycontin is the big one.
When really all you need are 1 or 2 to get you through a day or so. And so the bill said, the governor came out and said, look, 3 days is all you get, for 3 days supply. The legislature upped it, I think, to 5 or 7 days. But instead, you're not allowed to have all these pills just hanging around, because that's where a big portion of this starts.
But not only is it a problem with the addiction of those people, but man, the young kids might be in the house that want to do drugs. They take the grandparents or the father's drugs and they sell them for $30 a pill on the street. It's insane what's going on.
You end up with a bottle, and if you're responsible, like 99% of the people, you take a couple. I don't need any more, but they sit in your cabinet now.
And you forgot all about them.
Exactly.
You don't even look at them.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden they're gone one day, and the kids, some teenage kid decides to sell them and make a bunch of them because they're worth a lot of dough on the street. Yeah.
And so there's that. There's expanding naloxone. I forget the drug's name. Naloxone or something.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that.
There's some drugs out there that can help combat it, like the nasal spray. For people who have overdosed. So there's a lot of things that are going on. There are a lot of the Narcan. And so this was an important bill for us to get passed. And statistically shows that 4 people a day die in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
It's amazing.
4 people a day.
Our friends and neighbors. I mean, it really is. and people act like I'm strange, right? In the old days when I was a kid, like it or not, there was a federal program on educating people to stay off the drugs, right? You remember Ronald Reagan's Just Say No
Oh, yeah.
program, and people laugh at it.
Yeah.
But since then, I haven't seen one.
Right.
There's no more national message to get off drugs. Instead, frankly, in my opinion, people like states like Colorado who say, oh, marijuana is fine, and, this medical marijuana thing. It almost promotes drugs like it's good. Doctors are handing out Percocets and OxyContin like they're candy.
Yeah.
I mean, we really need a national message again on drug avoidance. And it's sad that, we have to create all these local programs because there is no message,
Right.
And people laugh at the round way, just say no. But I'd love to see a message to our kids that says, just say no. Don't get involved in the first place.
Yeah.
Don't kill yourself, because too many of these young teenagers or people in their 20s and 30s are being driven away, overdose on OxyContin, given Narcan. Hopefully it saves their lives, but it may not. And they're dying of overdoses like unbelievable. And it's a problem everywhere. The Cape has a huge problem with it, but it's an issue everywhere. And I'm glad that we're starting to recognize it. But a lot more has to be done. This is just the start of the problem.
A lot more has to happen, and we're really starting to do the research now. We're going to vote on legalizing marijuana here in Massachusetts in November. And a lot of people say, well, it's not a gateway drug. It's just we can go off on ballot questions for a long
I have my
time.
own personal issues on that,
but it's the whole thing is it boils down to a bumper sticker.
Yep.
Treat marijuana like alcohol, but it's not alcohol. It's not the same thing.
Nope.
It's different. Back when you and I were in our 20s. I'm not, but marijuana maybe had 2% THC. Now it's like 40%.
Right.
It's about the edibles. There's so many other problems associated with this.
Again, I want to stress that again, because I think it's really clear for people to understand. The marijuana of today is not the marijuana that me and you grew up with. The stuff today is laced with all kinds of chemicals from drug dealers who want to, addict you or your children. Stay away from it. It's dangerous. You don't know what the heck is in it anymore, and there's a good chance you're going to get addicted or die from this crap. So it's not only a gateway, but it's also a real problem. You can actually get addicted to that as well, and it just goes downhill from there.
And we had a group of senators who traveled out to Colorado to kind of see what was going on out there in preparation for what may happen here. And a lot of people will say, well, why don't we just tax marijuana the way, and we can get revenue from it. No. But that's not what Colorado's saying.
I agree. Now, we're coming to the end of the show, Pete, so I want to thank you for being a guest. I want to thank you for your service to the community. I appreciate the fact that you're around. If I need you, you're there. As always, I kid you, send me more money, because I need money for all kinds of projects, but I know you're doing your best, so I appreciate that. And I want to thank you for watching today's episode of Celebrating Southbridge. I appreciate you being here. I've heard wonderful comments from so many citizens about this show, and we're going to keep it going because we want you to be informed about Southbridge issues. The town council has made it clear that we want the town to be very transparent, and that's what we're doing here. So, Pete, thank you. I appreciate you being a guest, and look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.